Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity. Horace Mann. Humans are the only creatures who live not just to survive, but to leave their mark in the flow of time. A predator hunts out of instinct. A tree grows out of nature. But humans carry within themselves a profound desire to transcend their own limits. Have we lived merely to consume life? Or have we contributed to making the world a better place? Many people live like leaves drifting on the water's surface, existing but creating no significant ripples. They wake up, work, eat, grow old, and disappear, leaving behind a silence no different from before they arrived. What is truly frightening is not death, but a life that has never truly been lived for anything greater than oneself. A soul that revolves only around personal gain will gradually shrink like a room devoid of light, where all dreams die young due to mediocrity and fear. A victory for humanity does not necessarily mean becoming a historical hero or changing the whole world. Sometimes it is about healing a desperate soul. It is about creating an idea that improves human life. It is about raising a child to become a kind person. It is about standing up for the truth when everyone else stays silent. Great victories always begin with small actions driven by a spirit of service, because the value of a human life does not lie in how much they possess, but in how much their existence has brightened this world. We easily settle for a safe life as long as it brings no pain or extreme hardship, but prolonged comfort will turn the soul into barren land. A sword left unused will rust. Wings that never dare to fly will become useless. And a person who lives for no ideal beyond themselves will gradually lose the deepest meaning of their existence. Those who live for something greater than their ego often feel that life is most worth living. They may be exhausted, they may fail, they may be misunderstood, but inside them burns a flame that selfish indulgence could never ignite. It is the feeling of knowing that one is contributing to something beyond the limits of this short lifetime. What makes a person remembered is not how much they have accumulated for themselves, but what they have left behind for humanity. A great life is not measured by the number of years lived, but by the number of hearts touched, the darkness illuminated, and the hope sown into the world. Perhaps the greatest shame is not failure, but having never dared to fight for anything worthwhile before one's time runs out. The roughest roads often lead to the top. Christina Aguilera. There are paths in life not paved with roses, with no applause waiting at the end. They appear like a mountain slope covered in thick fog, where every step aches from sharp rocks and biting winds. People often fear such journeys because our instinct always seeks comfort and safety. Yet it is the harshest paths that lead us to the summits, that those who only seek peace will never see. A seed wanting to touch the sunlight must tear itself from its hard shell. An eagle wanting to master the sky must dive into the abyss to learn how to spread its wings in a storm. And so it is with humans. No one becomes truly strong just by standing still in their comfort zone. Great challenges are like a raging fire melting metal. They do not destroy those with willpower, but refine them into a sharper version of themselves. What brings many to their knees is not the hardship itself, but the fear of the pain that comes with it. They look at the mountain and see only a terrifying height, rather than the glorious view waiting at the top. We often underestimate our own endurance. We easily believe that we will break under pressure, but in reality, the soul possesses extraordinary adaptability. The sleepless nights, the failures, the moments when continuing seems impossible are precisely where inner strength is quietly forged. No one climbs to the peak without trembling legs, but neither does anyone understand the value of the sky without having crossed their own abyss. Some walk through storms and become bitter toward life, but there are others who, after all the wounds, possess the calm gaze of someone who understands life's true nature. They know that hardships do not come to punish, but to expand the boundaries of the soul. Just as coal must endure immense pressure to become a diamond, humans must also go through pressure to uncover the hidden power within. If you are walking a challenging road today, do not rush to call yourself unfortunate. Life may be silently leading you to a summit that your former, weaker self would never have been capable of reaching. The hardest journeys often forge the most extraordinary people, and one day, as you stand on your own mountain peak, you will understand that every wound, every fall, every ache you endured was a worthy price for a grander vision of life. Pain is temporary. Quitting lasts forever. Lance Armstrong. Growth is always accompanied by pain. No one walks out of darkness without eyes stinging from despair. No one touches true power without having once wanted to collapse halfway, without wanting to stop whenever life becomes too heavy. But pain, ultimately, is just a storm passing through the mind, while quitting is a door you close yourself, locking away the possibility of seeing a better version of yourself. Humans fear pain because the brain is wired to avoid injury. We want to run from failure, avoid pressure, and find a safe shelter. But the more we flee from hardship, the more fragile we become. A sword not forged in fire will forever remain a useless lump of metal. A tree that has never withstood fierce winds will easily be uprooted by the first storm. And a person who has never walked through pain will never fully grasp the depth of their own strength. Pain does not exist to destroy us. It is like life's alarm clock, forcing us to awaken from stagnation and weakness. There are long nights that seem insurmountable, failures that shatter our self-esteem, betrayals that turn the heart as cold as a snow-covered winter. But time will soothe every wound. The only thing left behind is the person you become after it all. If you persevere and keep moving forward, the pain will transform into experience. Wounds will become wisdom, and tears will become depth in your soul. But if you quit, what remains is not just failure, but a simmering regret that lingers for years to come. The most terrifying thing is not failure. The most terrifying thing is that years later, looking back on your life, you realize you turned your back on your dreams simply because of a temporary, difficult phase. The pain will eventually pass, like the rainy season, but the feeling of "if only I had tried a little harder" can haunt a person longer than any wound. Sometimes strength does not lie in how quickly you win, but in the fact that you keep walking, even when your soul is weary. A resilient person is not someone who feels no pain, but someone who understands that behind the darkest days often lies the most brilliant sunrise. And one day, when you overcome that seemingly unbearable stretch of road, you will realize the very pain that once threatened to break you is what built an unbreakable resilience within you. It is amazing what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit. Harry S. Truman. The more we crave recognition, the easier it is to become prisoners of our own ego. Many people don't truly work for passion or ideals. They secretly live in a hunger for applause. They want their names mentioned. They want the spotlight on them. They want every achievement to bear their personal mark. But this very need scatters their energy. like a fire forced to split its strength between burning and checking if anyone is watching it. Truly, great individuals are rarely obsessed with applause. They understand that what matters is not who stands on the podium to receive the medal, but what has been created for the world. A forest doesn't need to know who planted the first seed to grow deep and green. A river doesn't need to be praised to silently nourish an entire barren land. And people of true depth are the same. They focus on the value they bring instead of trying to snatch a fragile halo. The ego is like a small glass. The more you try to fill it with recognition, the faster it spills and breeds dissatisfaction. Praised today, fearing forgotten tomorrow. That is why many spend their whole lives fighting an invisible war to protect their reputation rather than building genuine value. They claim credit, compete, and silently envy when others receive more attention. But strong souls are different. They don't need to win every petty argument because they are aiming for something much larger, the ultimate outcome. The greatest achievements of humanity are rarely the product of a single individual. Behind every magnificent structure are countless silent hands contributing without anyone knowing their names. But it is exactly this anonymity that creates such astonishing collective power. Those brave enough not to fight for credit are usually those with the deepest inner strength because they are no longer controlled by the need to prove themselves. They work with the calm grace of someone who knows exactly where their value lies. The most beautiful thing about such people is that they feel very much like the sun. The sun never demands gratitude from the world, yet it patiently shines every day. And similarly, when a person learns to set goals higher than their personal ego, they become infinitely freer, stronger, and more effective. Because at that point, their energy is no longer wasted on seeking validation, but is poured entirely into creating something of true meaning. Those who make the greatest impact are usually not those who talk a lot about themselves, but those who silently build bridges so others can cross. And sometimes, this very self-forgetfulness is the noblest peak a human can reach. Life throws challenges, and every challenge comes with rainbows and lights to conquer it. Amit Ray. Life has never been a calm, flat lake. It is more like the ocean. There are days so peaceful. The sun paints the water in gold, but there are also stormy nights that make a person feel small and lost among massive waves. No one lives without facing challenges. Some fight poverty. Some wrestle with loneliness. Some carry wounds in their hearts that no one can see. No rain lasts forever, and no night is dark enough to swallow the dawn. We humans often only see the pain when we are right in the middle of it. Just like someone standing in a storm might think the entire sky is nothing but dark clouds. But in truth, behind those clouds, the sun still exists. The light hasn't vanished. It's only temporarily hidden. When we fail, we think we are failures forever. When we are hurt, we believe our hearts will never heal. But time always proves the opposite. What once brought us the most agonizing pain eventually becomes just a memory, and we emerge stronger after it all. Challenges are not just obstacles. They are tests meant to awaken the dormant strength inside us. A gemstone must endure tremendous pressure to form its brilliance. A butterfly must struggle to escape its cocoon. Otherwise, its wings will never be strong enough to fly. And it is the same with people often. It is adversity that builds depth, resilience, and empathy, things that peaceful days simply cannot offer. The most beautiful truth is that inside every difficulty, an invisible rainbow is waiting. Sometimes it is a person arriving right on time to pull us out of despair. Sometimes it is a lesson that makes us more mature. Sometimes it is simply the moment we realize we are stronger than we ever thought. Rainbows only appear after the rain, and the light is often most radiant after the darkest of times. Those who have waded through profound suffering are often those who know how to cherish happiness the most. Life makes no promises of an easy road, but it always silently leaves rays of light for those who keep walking. And perhaps true strength doesn't lie in avoiding the storms, but in the ability to hold on to the belief that behind those gray clouds, blue skies are still waiting. One day, looking back at the trials that once brought you to tears, you will understand they didn't come to destroy you. They came to teach you how to see the light, even in the darkest hours of your life. Far and away, the best prize that life has to offer is the chance to work hard at work worth doing. Theodore Roosevelt. Many people spend their entire lives chasing money, fame, or admiration, believing that is the pinnacle of success. But deep within human psychology lies a need greater than pleasure, the need to feel significant. A truly happy person isn't one living idly amidst endless conveniences, but one who wakes up every morning knowing their existence is contributing to something worthwhile. Work is not merely to survive, but to let the soul feel it is alive. There is a strange emptiness in a life without purpose. Humans were not born to remain stagnant like stagnant water, but to move like a river, always finding its way to the grand ocean. When someone pours their heart into what they believe in, a very special energy emerges within them, something that makes fatigue meaningful. An artist can stay awake for nights to finish a masterpiece. A doctor can be exhausted after hours of saving lives. A father can work until his hands are calloused, just so his family can be at peace. From the outside, it looks like a struggle, but from the inside, it is the feeling of living true to one's values. People endure hardships much better when they feel their work carries meaning, because what kills the spirit is not labor, but the sense of pointlessness. A pair of wings won't feel heavy if they know where they are flying, and a soul will not easily break if it understands that its efforts are creating real value for the world. Work worth doing is rarely easy. It demands patience, sacrifice, and sometimes silent failures that no one witnesses. But it is these very things that forge us into a more mature version of ourselves. Just as the soil must be tilled before it can bear fruit, we too must endure hard work and trials to discover the depth of our inner power. No one feels genuine pride when achieving something too effortlessly. The greatest value of an accomplishment lies in the sweat shed to create it. The most beautiful aspect of doing meaningful work is that it expands our lives beyond our personal ego. When someone lives purely to consume, their soul gradually shrinks into petty desires. But when they work for something greater than themselves, for family, community, passion, or an ideal, they begin to sense a profound connection to life. That is the light that keeps people moving forward with quiet pride, even when exhausted. And one day, when looking back on the road traveled, what fulfills you the most might not be the money you earned or the praises you received. It will be the feeling that you lived wholeheartedly, using your finite time to create something meaningful. And that is perhaps the most noble prize life can bestow upon a person. The flower that blooms in adversity is the most rare and beautiful of all. Disney. There is a beauty that is not born from ease. It grows from storms, from arid days that seem impossible to survive. The same goes for humans. those souls who have gone through pain but still maintain their tenderness, who were crushed by life, but still chose to rise and bloom brilliantly among the harshest conditions. A seed lying beneath the dark soil has no idea what sunlight looks like. It must endure the weight of the dirt, the coldness of night rain, and the isolation of darkness before it can sprout. But it is this very process that grants it such vibrant vitality. If placed in a perfect garden, it might be pretty, but it would never possess the resilient beauty of a flower that fought to survive. It is the same with people. Souls that have never experienced adversity are often fragile in the face of hardship. Meanwhile, those who have walked through storms carry a very different light, a light of empathy, depth, and unwavering strength. We are programmed to seek safety, but adversity is where a person's true nature is revealed. When things are easy, anyone can smile, but only in the darkest days do we see who has the strength to remain kind, who dares to hope even when life turns its back. That is why those who have endured deep wounds often have a very special gaze, one that is both calm and powerful, as if they have fought an entire battle inside themselves that no one else can see. Some people become bitter toward the world because of their suffering, but there are others who, after it all, become a gentle refuge for others. They are like flowers sprouting from dry, rocky crevices. The rarer they are, the more they move us when we find them. Their beauty doesn't lie in perfection, but in the ability to hold on to life amidst conditions meant to kill the soul. Adversity doesn't just destroy, it also filters and purifies. Just as fire can burn down straw, but refines gold into a purer state, hardship unveils our true character. Those brave enough to step through pain often possess a deep magnetism because they are no longer naive to the world, yet they still choose to believe in the light. The most beautiful thing about the flower blooming in adversity is that it doesn't just live for itself. Its existence becomes a beacon of hope for despairing souls. No matter how harsh life is, there is always the potential to rise, to bloom, and to turn our scars into an irreplaceable kind of beauty. Because sometimes the most precious things in this world are not born out of ease, but are forged from quiet courage in the midst of a storm. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. Alice Walker. There is a silent tragedy in human existence. Not everyone is stripped of their power, but many willingly surrender it. We don't lose power all at once, but bit by bit, beginning with our thoughts. A person who believes they aren't good enough will stop trying. A person who believes they cannot change will stop acting. And when action ceases, life gradually shrinks like a room with no windows. The most terrifying thing is not being limited by circumstances, but by our own perception of ourselves. Safety is preferred over the truth. Instead of facing the possibility of failure, the mind convinces us that we never had the ability to begin with. It is a sophisticated defense mechanism. If you don't try, you won't fail. If you don't believe in your power, you won't have to take responsibility for using it. But the price to pay is immense. Passivity slowly replaces potential, and people become mere spectators in their own lives. In truth, inner power rarely vanishes. It only gets covered by fear, doubt, and failures that have not been interpreted correctly. A person who has stumbled might conclude they are weak, when in fact, they are just in the early stages of mastering a skill. But if that false belief is repeated long enough, it becomes a psychological truth, and from that point on, they no longer act like someone capable of making a change. The external world often reacts to to our internal beliefs. The one who believes they can influence their life will start taking action, and action breeds results. Conversely, the one who believes they are powerless will stop trying, and their powerlessness becomes reality. Power, therefore, is not just the ability to affect the world, but the ability to believe you can. The people who transform their lives aren't necessarily the strongest from the start, but those who refuse to accept the definition of, "I have no power." They may be afraid, they may fail, but they hold on to a core principle, the belief that their actions matter. And this very belief becomes the engine that drives them to stand up, try again, and slowly push past their own boundaries. Ultimately, our greatest power doesn't lie in our circumstances, but in our awareness. When someone changes the way they view themselves, they don't just change their emotions, they alter the entire trajectory of their life. And perhaps the most important awakening is not becoming stronger, but realizing you were never truly as powerless as you thought. You never fail until you stop trying. Albert Einstein. Failure is not an absolute event, but a temporary interpretation of a journey. Effort always carries the essence of life within it. A person who is still trying is a person keeping the door open for change. Every stumble is not the end, but a piece of data on the journey, a signal that the old way didn't work, not that the entire path is blocked. Only when we stop do all possibilities truly close. People do not collapse from failure, but because they attach an absolute meaning to that failure. When someone thinks, "I am a failure," they unintentionally turn a fleeting moment into an identity. But when they think, "I haven't succeeded yet," the door remains ajar. The difference between these two perspectives seems small, but it determines the entire direction of a life. In reality, people who achieve greatness are rarely those who have never failed, but those who refuse to see failure as a stopping point. They understand that progress rarely happens in a straight line. It is like climbing a mountain in thick fog. Sometimes you go up, sometimes you slip down, sometimes you have to stop to regain your bearings. But as long as you keep moving, your final position is yet to be determined. What brings us down the most is not external difficulty, but the internal fatigue of not seeing immediate results. That is when the mind starts whispering, "Maybe I am just not good enough." But right in that moment, the boundary between the one who stops and the one who continues is drawn. One turns the challenge into a conclusion, while the other turns it into a process. No effort is meaningless if it is not yet over. Even when the results have yet to appear, you are still accumulating experience, resilience, and self-understanding. These things don't just disappear. They become the foundation for the next leap forward. And sometimes, what feels like a delay is precisely the necessary preparation for a much further jump. True failure is not found in how many times you have fallen, but in the moment you believe there is no longer a reason to stand back up. As long as you keep trying, you are still flowing in the river of possibility. And within that flow, your future has never been set in stone. It is still being created every single day by the very efforts you refuse to surrender. Even if you are on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. Will Rogers. Being on the right track cannot save a motionless person. People often confuse knowing what is right with living what is right. Knowing the right direction is like seeing the road from above. It's clear, logical, and even deeply convincing. But standing still before that road is no different than refusing the journey altogether. The world does not wait for absolute readiness. It operates on endless currents, where everything is either moving forward or being left behind. People easily fall into procrastination even when they clearly understand their goals. The reason isn't a lack of awareness, but because the brain always prioritizes immediate safety over long-term gain. Standing still brings a false sense of control. No mistakes, no failure, no risk. But that very safety is the most silent form of decline, because time does not stand still, and everything around us is constantly changing. Imagine standing on a highway with ceaseless traffic. Even if you know exactly where you need to go, if you don't take a step, you not only fail to reach your destination, you are pushed backward by the world's momentum. Life is the same. Unapplied knowledge becomes meaningless. Unexecuted plans gradually lose their vitality, and unactivated potential becomes a form of prolonged delay called "I'll start later." The most dangerous thing about standing still is that it doesn't immediately feel dangerous. It is like water, flowing so slowly that no one realizes they are sinking. Meanwhile, the outside world is accelerating. Others are learning, adapting, failing, trying again, and marching forward. At some point, the gap is no longer small. It becomes an unbridgeable chasm. Just by starting to walk, no matter how slowly, we break free from passivity. Progress does not demand extraordinary speed. It only demands that you do not stop. A small step every day is still infinitely more powerful than the right knowledge with zero action. Life doesn't reward passive correctness. It only responds to movement. And sometimes, what separates someone who knows a lot from someone who goes very far is not their knowledge, but whether or not they dared to abandon the comfort of standing still. No one gets left behind simply because they walk slowly. They get left behind because they thought standing still was safe.